I just wanted to introduce Andrew to you. David's been hollering for the last few minutes, but Andrew and I have got to know each other a little bit over the last few months. And what Andrew has achieved in Australia is quite fantastic. So the quality of the firm, the reputation that he has, and the experience that he creates for his clients. And so we were very pleased when he agreed to come over to this side of the world, and hopefully he'll be able to stay awake for most of the presentation, and share with us some of his experiences. And a lot of it is around being authentic, which is an unusual subject matter maybe for these sorts of conferences. But what type of person are you? What type of firm do you want to build? What type of experience do you want to create for your clients? And then all the cool stuff like tech and things come in at the right time. So Andrew, it's great to have you here. Thank you for coming over. When Andrew's finished this, we're going to curate a little bit of a Q&A and try and draw a bit more value out of him while he's around. So I'll shut up and pass over to you.
Thank you very much. How are we all? We good? You're looking, like, I was told that British people had a bit of a look about them, and you guys look amazing. Like, I was expecting it to be a bit different. Before we get started, can I get everyone to stand up? We're gonna keep moving around. This is gonna be really hard, so I'm gonna kind of break down a little bit of what I want to do, because I was gonna get you to move a fair bit, but I realized we're really crammed in. Can I get you to take a step to your left? Just one big step to your left. Excellent. Then can I get you to take 2 steps to the right? And then 1 back to the left. You should be back in front of your seat. And have a sit down. Excellent. I did that because my dad always said that I have to move people in order to have a fantastic presentation. So please consider yourself moved. And now we can get rolling into it. Now, what I want to do before I get started into this, I want to tell you a little bit about who I am. Because, like, why is this kind of bearded, slightly overweight Aussie here having a conversation about stuff? And I want to tell you a little bit about my story and where I've come from. So let's just talk about me. So Andrew van de Beek. Yes, if I was Dutch, I'd probably say Andrew van der Beek or something like that. I don't speak any Dutch, but that's who I am. I want to tell you a little bit of story about my business and where it came from. So I run a business called Illuminate with the number 8, because we figured that once people get to a certain age, they really get confused with numbers and letters, and we thought we'd just make it a bit hard for them. No, that's a joke. But what happened was 7 years ago, when I was 26 years old, I realized that the accounting industry in Australia, and I'm assuming it's something like that over here as well, is very transactional. It was all about, we have a document, we have to do something, we lodge it, we send our client a big fat bill, we talk about things that don't make sense to them, they feel somewhat belittled and they don't understand what's going on, and then we give them a really big bill that they probably can't afford and they don't know why they're paying that, and then we don't see them for maybe 12 months or maybe 3 months depending on the frequency of our involvement with them. And I said, well, that's bullshit, right? Why do we have to do something that is so transactional when realistically, as their accountant, we're one of their most trusted and closest advisors. We know so much intimate things about our clients that sometimes even their spouses don't know. So then what happened within Illuminate is that so I started this business because I wanted to be relational. I remember quitting my job, and I remember my current, the partner in the current firm looking at me with this kind of look of him like, you what? You're 26, do you really think you can do this? And it was kind of one of those really surreal moments. And I'm not sure if you've ever experienced that yourself in the past, where you've decided to go and do something and you've come up against the wall of objection. And I'm the kind of like Aussie where I'm like, don't you tell me what I can't do. I'm now going to go and show you how I can do that. Get some water, very good, I'm going to need that. So then we started this business, and I had a business partner, his name was Jason, and 4 years after working together, Jason got involved in a few other bits and pieces. And as a result of that, his attention started leaving what we were doing here at Illuminate. And at that time, we were still like a run-of-the-mill accounting firm, you could say. We were doing the stuff, whatever it looks like. We were being accountants. And we made a decision at that point in time that I would buy out Jason, my business partner, because he was paying attention to other things, and we're like, well, how can we make this work? And we really couldn't make it work. So I bought him out. But the story goes a little bit like this. I was sitting in a room having some advisory sessions with a couple of people, and the idea was I was going to go camping after that, just to kind of go through everything I've had chats with Jason on and decide whether I wanted to buy him out. And it turned out I actually went camping that night and downed about half a bottle of whiskey because I decided to buy him out that very day, and kind of went, whoa, what the fuck have I just done? All of a sudden I don't have a business partner and I've got this business and all these things. But then I was like, awesome. Like I have the ability to make and shape and mold and create something here. And then fast forward another 4 or 5 months after that, and I can vividly remember standing in my office bitching and complaining about what our business wasn't doing. We're not achieving the things we want to do. We're not generating the revenue. We're not profitable. Our people aren't doing this. Jason, why aren't you? I went, oh, hold on a second. I'm still trying to blame that business partner. I'm still trying to blame that guy that I used to spend a lot of time with for what's wrong in this business. So turn the finger around, point at yourself, Andrew, and start taking some responsibility on this business. All right, cool. So I'm in charge. I'm responsible of Illuminate. Well, who is Illuminate? Who are we? What do we stand for? Why do we exist? All these things I couldn't actually answer. And so we went through a bit of a journey of branding and discovery, and as a result of that, the brand Illuminate that you may be familiar with, if you're not, jump on our website, exists today. And it's something that for me, it came from within me, but it came from our team. It was a really beautiful experience, and I call it our coming out of the closet moment, where all of a sudden, we're kind of like, hey, by the way, this is who we really are. We've just been pretending to be something for a long period of time because that's what we thought people wanted, as opposed to saying, now this is who we are and away we go. And as a result of that, the catalyst of that meant our business has had phenomenal growth over that period of time. And I've been so heavily invested into what we've been doing. I've had an absolute ball and I've loved it. So I guess if I go into step one of who I am the founder of Illuminate. My role now is kind of like head of purpose. I don't get as involved on some of the day-to-day stuff, but I'm really key on why do we exist and what are we about. Now, what also happened then is that as a result of this business growing and taking things, it was taking a lot of my attention, a lot of my time, a lot of my brain space, and I'd be working my butt off during the day, and I'd come home, and I've got a wife and I've got a couple of kids as well, 2 and a 5-year-old daughters. And I remember coming home and what started happening, and you might be familiar with this, I'd come home and I'd sit on the couch and I'd just go, look, Dale, can I have a minute? I just need to debrief from the day. And I'd stare at the wall and I'd go to the nothing box. You might have heard of this. It's a beautiful place. Nothing happens. You're not thinking about anything. Nothing's actually going on. And it's quite magical, especially when you've had a really strenuous, busy day. So I'd come and I'd sit down and I'd be staring at this nothing box. And all of a sudden, it started happening more frequently. So it wasn't once every now and then. It became maybe once a week. And instead of once a week, maybe it became a couple times a week. And then all of a sudden, pretty much every single day when I came home, I found myself sitting on my couch, staring at the wall, in my nothing box. And then I heard my wife crying in the kitchen. And I didn't know why. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, I'm working my ass off. I'm doing all these things. I just need to have a break. And I come and I talk to her and she says to me, you're not here. You're not a part of this family. Do you even care about our kids? And it ripped me, and I struggle to talk about it now. And this isn't an uncommon thing. We might have all experienced this at one point in time, but for me, this just tore me in half because I wanted to build this business, Illuminate, so I could spend more time with my family, and I was actually doing the very opposite thing. And what it was doing is it was taking so much of my attention away that I was forgetting about the people that were most important. So if I look at the second part of who I am as a person, as I kind of take you through this, I'm a husband and I'm a father of 2 girls. Leora and Rhea are my daughter's names. Ivana is my wife. I love them. I was FaceTiming them this morning. My 2-year-old had spaghetti all over her face. She thought it was hilarious. And that's really cool. So that's the second part. Now, the third part that I want to talk about at Illuminate, we have a why. Hands up, have you ever read Simon Sinek's Start With Why book? If you haven't, I really highly recommend it, or even just watch, there's a YouTube clip that he does. The whole premise of the story is that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So that whole why, the what just validates the why, right? So yes, we're accountants and we lodge things and we do stuff, but why do we actually do it? What are we trying to achieve? So at Illuminate, our why is that we want our clients to get out of bed every day and devote their time to what they value the most. Not all the bullshit that their business forces them to do, like worrying about budgets and worrying about profitability and hiring, but like, what do you actually want to be doing? And in order for us to understand that with our clients, we ask them what we call the golden question. And our golden question goes a bit like this. If you could do one thing tomorrow, regardless of time, money, or location, with no restrictions at all, when you get out of bed, what would you do? And a lot of people really struggle to answer this. And you might be sitting there going, oh, gee, I don't know what I'd say. Because it doesn't have to be work. It can be something that's just a personal pleasure. I asked many different clients and they've got different things. So one of them is like, I'd take my dog for a walk along the beach. Other people say something more extravagant, like they'd pack their family into the plane, they'd head off to Disneyland, and they'd spend 2 weeks just having an absolute blast. Myself personally, if I could do anything tomorrow, I would open a whiskey bar. I'm absolutely obsessed with whiskey. I love it so much. I'm so excited that I found a Game of Thrones Clynelish whiskey at the Abu Dhabi airport on the way here because you can't get it anywhere. And I was like, that's ridiculous. So I'm obsessed with it. So part of me, my third thing is I dream of opening a whiskey bar. But that's actually the crux of what I'm trying to do within my business. I'm trying to make myself redundant, build a business that's not about me, and build a business that's actually about how we go about servicing our clients so I can get to that point. And if I go on the fourth little bit, and this is probably just more of something you might have picked up already, I'm a bit of an odd character. I'm a little bit left of center. People particularly don't think that I'm an accountant. Normally, like what I like to do when I kind of at barbecues or out at the pub and chatting to people who don't know me, they're like, oh, what do you do? I'm like, well, what do you think I do? And most people come back and they say, oh, I reckon you're a graphic designer, or I reckon you're a brewer, or I reckon I got a bouncer once. People think, like, I don't know. I'm like, well, I'm an accountant. They're like, no way! That's weird. I'm like, why is that weird? You just don't look like one. And I'm like, that's fine. I actually look like Andrew. I just happen to be an accountant. But this whole misfit thing kind of goes through a fair bit for me as well. There's a chicken shop, a local chicken shop where my office is in Mount Eliza in Victoria, and I eat so much chicken at this chicken shop that they've started referring to me as boss. Like, hey, thanks, boss. Not like a term of endearment, but it's actually their reality that if I stopped buying chicken from there, they would probably go broke. And then I've got another client, and this other client, I'm going to go to here, and she refers to me as Beaker. And she thinks it's hilarious. She kind of takes all of these Muppet characters and assigns that. So I'm referred to as Andrew Beaker Van Der Beek whenever I talk with her. And for me, that's just, I guess, a bit of a reflection of the person that I am. Now, that's telling you a little bit about myself. And what I want to do is I want to take you a little bit further on the journey. But I want to reflect. I've been in the UK for like 2 days so far, so I'm not jet lagged anymore, which is awesome. But there's some really fun things that I've found, and I promise I'm going to get to talk about accounting stuff in a minute. But the very thing that I witnessed on the train yesterday, I believe epitomises like Australians' understanding of British people. There were 2 people on the train, and they were having a very heated debate about whether you put jam or cream on first on your scones. And this went for 25 minutes, and their mates were getting involved in it. I'm like, far out, this is real, this is what it's really like. So that was really interesting. Now, I'm not going to try to talk to you about making tax digital or Brexit or any of these things that I have absolutely no authority on. I'm not here to try and tell you how to be good accountants, because realistically, you're probably fantastic accountants already, and you don't really need to know that. But what I want to do is I want to challenge you on something, and something that's helped me to get to where I am today. I'm probably going to offend you. I'm probably going to swear at you. I promise it's all in love. I promise this is all about good experiences and good times. If I do offend you, if you want to challenge me on anything, feel free to throw your hand up and do that, or grab me afterwards. I'm here for a couple of days as well. So here we go. I'm going to get right into it. I'm going to try and roll through this as quick as I can so that we can get to the good stuff and we can answer a couple of questions too. All right. You are data monkeys. This is what you are, or historically this is what you are. You get the data, you analyze the data, you manipulate the data, you interpret the data, you communicate the data. That's really what we have done historically as accountants, right? So we've got a whole bunch of information and we then try to communicate that back to our clientele or whoever it is out there using all the information that we've got. Then all of a sudden the rise of the machines came. Oh, you got people like Xero and QuickBooks and Sage and many, many others. I was surprised at how many tech companies there are here today. But what's happened is all of a sudden these rise of machines have come out and they go, oh, all of a sudden all these things that we maybe did over the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years no longer exist. But not necessarily exist, but maybe they don't exist in the way that they used to exist. And what I find that is really interesting, because it means that all of a sudden we need to start thinking a little bit differently. But what also happens there is this fear-mongering in technology, and you might have received that as well. You better use technology, because if you don't, you're up the creek and you're not going to lose all your clients, and all these kind of things are going to happen. Technology can help us become amazing. It can help us potentially become better than the next person, and that's really, really good. But what it potentially does, and what we find now, is as a result of all these technology things, we have all these software sales dickheads out there, sorry, my firms, but what they do is they start trying to sell you their software to tell you that, the machines are coming and you need to make sure we're using all these things, fear-mongering and talk to us accountants about stuff that maybe we go, look, I really appreciate you saying that, but can you just understand what it is that I actually do first? Pause, really quick joke for you, really quick question. Why can you not fart in an Apple store? Any answers? Because they don't have windows. Got it. Good. Sorry, that was my technology joke that I want to kind of run on to. So what happens is that all of a sudden the rise of these machines, and then we've got our software salespeople come out, and what they say is compliance is dead. Now, I'm not sure what that's like here in the UK, but I know in Australia, there's a lot of noise around, the things that you used to do don't exist anymore. And I call bullshit on a lot of that stuff. I think it's not particularly true. I think that there's still compliance exists. It just looks differently in the way that we go about that and the way that we deliver that as well. I'm not sure if you guys listen to podcasts. There's a fantastic accounting podcast that comes out of Melbourne called From the Trenches. It's got Paul Meisner from Five Ways Group and David Boyer from SQL CFO. Those two are fantastic at actually unpacking accounting things. Don't tell your clients to listen to it because they won't understand it, but you'll probably love it. They also, one of the big things is that Paul Meisner is a very strong compliance champion. He loves compliance. He thinks it's a great thing, so he pushes that as well. So I recommend you have a listen to that. So all of a sudden we're getting told that compliance is dead. But I don't think it's dead. I just don't think it's as valuable as what it looks like. So as a result of that, as a result of the rise of the machines, the data monkeys, we're getting told compliance is dead. Then what we get is we get all of the business coaches that start coming out that want to, talk to us accountants about, hey, how can I help to transform your business now that everything's going to shit? Hey, let's specialize. You need to start specializing. You need to start focusing on this particular niche. You need to start looking after those guys that wear hats and jeans and beards and drink coffee here and they listen to that kind of music. And you need to find that niche that's so tight that there's only 3 people possible and you can rule that entire space, right? That's kind of what we get told. Interesting. Sounds cool. But what also then happens is if we're going to go niche, well, we better get more educated because if you're not educated, then your clients aren't going to trust what you do. Right? Get those letters at the end of your name. I'm a CA, so I've got CA at the end of my name. I've also got a couple other things, I just can't be bothered talking about them. But what we do is we get those qualifications and we throw them and we shout them from the rooftop. Hey, I think it's ACCA here, I'm an ACCA, and in the US, CPA, in Australia it's CA and CPA. And we start using that as like a sense of pride of what we can do and how good we can do it. But in my humble opinion, you know what words come out, don't you? In my humble opinion, this technology, this niching, this education, it's all a load of shit. It really is. And let me help to explain to you why I believe it is actually a load of shit. Who runs a cloud-based business, who does all these things as well. That technology that you use, the bloke down the road's using it as well. That service that you just developed, that you're delivering to your clients, some chick just Googled it and figured out how to do it in 30 seconds, and they can do that as well. There's a phrase that's out there that says, the early bird gets the worm. Did you know that the second mouse gets the cheese? That's a whole technology approach, right? Sometimes businesses like ours get to lead the pack with technology, and we're going, we start shouting from the rooftops, but all of a sudden we look back and we're like, oh, everyone's also doing this, and how do I differentiate myself as a result of that? And those letters that are at the end of your name, and this is the one I'm really wary of here, those ACCA or whatever it is you've got, do you know who cares about them the most? You and your mum. They are the ones that are the most impressed about that. Now, this is my experience in Australia. This is my experience of my clients coming to me saying, I'm looking for an accountant that I can connect with. Oh, you happen to be a CA? Cool, what does that mean? Oh, is that important? Oh, great. Now, we specialise working with small startup growth businesses. So we're not working at the high top end of town. And if you're talking high top end of town, there's probably a lot more expectation. But realistically, it's not all that important. So what's the secret sauce? If all of a sudden we've said technology doesn't make a difference, if all of a sudden we've said niching's not all that important because anyone can do it, if all of a sudden we said education actually isn't going to help you, what is it? Any guesses? Hang on, it's you. It's actually the beautiful mess of openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. Try say that 10 times over really quick. So those are actually what's referred to as the 5 big personality traits. And for me, what that looks like is that's talking about who you are, what you are made up of, what your team looks like, how you actually live out your day to day on a basis that is true and that is authentic. And so what I want to do is I want to start to push through a little bit about this authenticity side of things and start to understand what that looks like. But what I really want to encourage you when we're sitting here today is then when it's about you, you need to be comfortable to be yourself. You need to be comfortable to be that football mad loving person, that crazy tech person, the person who loves drinking whiskey. Whoever that is that you are, don't hide it from the world. Because so your clients out there, they want to see that and they want to know that. And if we hide that from them, all of a sudden we're removing a potential client market as a result of that. So authenticity, why would we even worry about it? I'm wondering if you guys got any thoughts here. Has anyone got any thoughts about why would we worry about being authentic? Feel free to throw it out if you got it. Sorry? Trust? Anything else? Don't all shout at once. It's perfectly fine. I've got a list, but I'd like to see if we're like in sync here.
I think you could be a role model for your staff.
Yeah, absolutely. It's set a role model, an expectation, showing people how you go about things. Anything else? I want one more, then I'm going to go to mine. What about the guys at the back? Anything?
We spend a lot of time doing what we do. We may as well be happy doing it.
Bang. So I'm going to shrink that and I'm going to call that mental well-being. So he just said we spend a lot of time doing what we do. We need to be happy doing that. And so I want to kind of talk a little bit about that. So some of those thoughts that I have here is there's a Greek word. Anyone here Greek? Sweet. So if I get this wrong, that's all good. I believe it's pronounced maraki. And that maraki means, I'm going to read this word for word to make sure I get it right. It's a somewhat untranslatable word that modern day Greeks use to describe doing something with soul, with creativity, or with love. It's when you put something of yourself into what it is that you are doing. And for me, authenticity is all about that. And I talk about why should we worry about that. Trust, number one. If we are being true to ourselves and we're being true to our clients aren't going to see us on the weekend and go, whoa, hold on a second, I didn't realize that was you. Classic example, before we went through our coming out of the closet moment at Illuminate, I had a beard. It wasn't as big as or impressive as this one. This takes time. But I'd have clients that walk upstairs and they'd be like, whoa, gee, I wasn't expecting you to look like that because your website shows you looking like something different. So all of a sudden there was this mismatch of who are we saying that we are, and when they start interacting with us, what do we actually look like? So that's one of those things, is trust. We talked about the mental well-being things. That is enormous. I'm going to touch on this story now. I was going to do it a bit later, but I remember vividly, I started my career with KPMG. And I remember vividly about 3 weeks before I started, I was sitting on a bus talking to my best mate about, I'm going to be an accountant. I got this thing with KPMG. It's going to be really cool. And this lovely little old lady who was sitting in front of me turns around and goes, "Did you know that accountants have one of the highest rates of depression and suicide in professional services?" Well, fuck off, bitch. I didn't actually say that. But really, but it's true, right? It's somewhat true. We're in this realm where sometimes we're trapped in our office, and sometimes if we don't have a team, we're working by ourselves. Often we don't feel appreciated, and we feel like we have to put this mask on to be something for someone that doesn't even represent who we are. And as a result of that, we start going this really dangerous path that could potentially lead to things like depression, and hopefully never to something like suicide as well. Now, there's something out there you might have heard before, and I hate this. Have you ever been told you need to appear to be more authentic? This often happens in larger organizations. Like I said, I spent my first 6 years with KPMG, and I can remember not these very words, but something like that. How horrible is that? What I want you to be is not yourself, but I need you to pretend like this is in fact who you are, so that people trust you. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to trick our clients instead of just being real about what that looks like. I hate that. So what I want to do is I want to bring this and make this a little bit practical, because it's really well and nice that I've talked about why technology is actually not worth it and all these kind of things, and I've said it, it's all about you, and we've talked about what authenticity looks like. But what I want to talk about specifically is 3 things on what can we do to drive authenticity. So what are the actual practical stuff that we can get out of this? And the first thing I want to start with is you need to stop comparing yourself to others. Stop it. It is the worst thing you possibly can do. If you start worrying about what your direct competitor is doing, you've lost it. All you're thinking about is what they do. You don't think about what you do. Think about that mental well-being. I know that whenever my business has gone through troughs, or whenever I haven't felt confident in what I'm doing, it's when I'm paying attention to what my competitors are doing. Oh, they did this big conference and I wasn't a part of that. Oh, they've just picked up this client. I don't have any clients like that. When realistically, I've got fantastic clients and I do fantastic stuff. And what we're trying to achieve, we're actually doing that. But when I'm worrying about what everyone else is doing, I'm forgetting about what I should be doing, and I'm forgetting about who I am. There's a guy by the name of Rob Bell. I'm not sure if any of you guys know him. He used to be a pastor in the United States. He does a lot of kind of thought leadership, kind of spiritual stuff. but he wrote this book called Velvet Elvis a number of years ago. And there's a whole bunch of things you can get out of this, but one thing that stuck with me out of this book is this story that he tells. And he tells this story about a painting that he finds in his basement. And it's a painting of Elvis on velvet. That's why it's called a Velvet Elvis. But in the very bottom right-hand corner of this painting, I think it was initially just the letter R. And he sits there and he ponders this. He's like, oh, gee, that's really interesting that like this person who painted this painting initially with the letter R, that's a bit cocky. Like imagine if what happened when this guy did this painting and he realized that it was the best painting you've ever seen. And what he did is he called a massive press conference. He got all his mates. Picture it like a hip hop troupe just kind of crashing on stage and they're chilling with their paintbrushes and stuff. And he's like, behold the Velvet Elvis. As you can see, it is the greatest thing that has ever happened. And thus, I now decree that you need to stop trying to change anything and you might as well just copy what it is that I have done. It's pretty dumb, isn't it? Think of all the art and all the the majestic stuff that we've been able to experience as a result of people trying to push the boundaries, trying to do things different, trying to live their lives out. Now think about that as accountants. Think about all the things that we've been able to achieve because we've learned from others, but we've then adopted and we've taken it our own way. I talk a lot about in my business, I'm trying to make myself redundant. I'm just caretaking my business. It will be my people's business eventually. And what I really want is I want them to stand on my shoulders and take this further because I know I cannot take it where it needs to go on my own. I know that I need other people to do that as well. So that story of comparison is like, don't worry about what others are doing. Think about what you're doing. Don't try and copy. We don't need another copy-paste. What we actually need is we need you. What your clients need is they need you. They don't need the guy next door. Second one that I want to throw in there, you need to start asking more questions than you answer. And this is a hard one for me because I like talking. And I think it's a hard one for us as professionals as well because we feel like we have to know everything about everything. When our clients come to us, they're like, oh, I went to you because you're the blah, blah, blah. Therefore, we're like, shit, I better make sure I know what I'm talking about, and therefore I'm just going to answer everything. It is okay not to give an answer. It's actually more important to ask questions. And what I've found in my relationship with my clients is the more questions I ask of them, the more they open up of themselves, the better conversations we have, the more problems we solve for them, the more work I get, the more profit I make, the more happy we all are. But that's because we're asking questions. So if I go there a little bit further and I'm recognizing I've been talking so much now, you need to stop talking, you need to start teaching. That's a big change, right? Because we can just talk about what you need to do and what Making Tax Digital is, the practicalities of all these things and how to run a business and how to do this and how to use technology. But if we're just talking and it's going to fall on deaf ears eventually. What are we doing to teach our clients? What are we doing to empower them? But from a way that is who we are. This is what I believe. This is what I think. Australia, we recently, we're going through an election at the moment. Literally like a week after I get home, I've got to go and vote. And the government at the time released their federal budget about a month ago, which is really interesting because the government that's there at the moment is a high likelihood that they're not going to be the government in like 2 weeks' time. So they kind of spent all this money to release a budget that we're kind of like, well, that's kind of pointless, but thank you very much. But what we did is the way that we go about this thing is start teaching is we go, well, how do we then communicate something that might be up here to people that actually play down there? I don't want to speak down to people. I don't want to speak in accounting language. I don't even want to speak to people. I want to speak with them. So are you speaking with your clients in their language, in the way that they talk? Or are you confusing them and getting to the point where they're like, I assume that they know what they're talking about, but I don't understand. So I'm just going to blindly trust what that looks like. And the third one I want to throw out is don't do it alone. And this don't do it alone, whether you're a sole practitioner with no team, whether you've got a team, whatever that looks like, it is really important in this day and age, as I was touching on mental wellness, is that you need to have people in your corner. But more importantly, you need to have people that you have given authority to that can challenge you on how you're going about things. And one of the things that I actually got challenged, I was speaking in Sydney at a conference recently, and I was chatting with someone with a couple of beers later that night, and she's from a technology company, and she had some of her team with her, and one of their team was this super fit dude with like a man bun ponytail thing, tight top. And I was like, man, what's up with your freaking dude with the ponytail? You know, like, what's his deal? And she's like, I cannot believe those words just came out of your mouth. You are the guy that talks about authenticity. You are the guy that talks about be yourself, and you are bashing someone because of their hair? That is ridiculous. So what I'm saying here is you need to have people in your space that you can encourage to challenge you when you're not being yourself. When you're acting things, you're thinking things that are not true, that can help to correct that. And sometimes that's when we feel like shit and low and they can bring you back up. And other times that's when we're floating high in the skies with our ego and they need to kind of pop that a little bit. One of the things that's defined my life over the last probably 6 or so years is this phrase of, you are not defined by what you are going through, but how you go through it. For me, that is massive. I went through some stuff where people were accusing me of some things and I had to deal with that, and it was all 100% false. And I could have come in and attacked. I could have been there, yeah, but you, and look what we did, and all these things. But realistically, that would have just painted me as a bad guy. It was not who I am. It's not how I act. So I wanted to make sure that when I'm going through things in life, that I'm acting out the way that Andrew does these things, not the way that maybe my lawyer says I should be doing all those things, because I need to be able to live with myself at the end of the day when I'm doing that stuff. So business is a really lonely place. No one really knows what you're going through. You might have business partners, you might have spouses, you might have family members, but at the end of the day, no one really knows what you're going through. So that's why it's really important that we don't do it alone. I have an advisory board, so my previous business partner sits on my advisory board and 3 other people as well. And I spend some time with them on a regular-ish basis where I talk to them about what's going on in business, and they can help to challenge me that. So one thing I challenge you is, who is in your world that can do that for you? And if you don't have anyone, start to think about that. And when you're thinking about that, don't just go, oh, I'll go to that accountant because they're really good at accounting stuff and I reckon that'd be sweet. Think about people that you admire that have something that you don't do. So my advisory board, I've got someone who is very kind of conscious of the impact that we are having on the world. So very charitable, very focused on that kind of stuff. We've got a little social enterprise running together. I've got another older gentleman who is retired, but he was involved in building mobile apps with banks, so he understands high-level project management. And I've got another guy that runs a local cafe that is doing some crazy, amazing stuff, and he understands brand and he understands customer service. And I have those people there because that is skills that I might not have, and I want them to be sewing that into me so that I can learn and grow that as well. So this is one thing that happens as a result, I see, of not living out this authentic life. And when we have this mask on and we pretend to be this accountant, what happens? We start pretending to be someone or something that we're not really are. And the tragedy of what that happens is, if we start pretending to be someone for long enough, we forget who we really are. We actually forget what makes us the people that we are. We actually forget what value we can actually do. When I run an accounting business, I spent 6 years with KPMG. I did not fit in. I had the emo fringe with like the dyed black with bleach, and I had an eyebrow ring that I took out eventually because it didn't look good. But I realized it didn't work for me. But if I stayed in that space, and if I started to go, well, this is what's expected of me to be able to be successful, I would have changed who I am. And my family and my friends and all these people that I get to work with now, my clientele, if I became that person, I wouldn't be who I am now. I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing right now. I just become that other clone of that person. So be careful who you pretend to be. You might forget who you are. All right, so today. So I walked in and there's a shitload of people here and it's just so much noise going on. You're going to hear a lot of stuff. You're going to sit in a lot of other sessions. Hopefully they're going to be really valuable. Hopefully you're going to get a lot of kind of stuff that comes out of that. Can I encourage you not to just copy and paste that? Can I encourage you to, if you learn something, you hear something, whether it's something I've said, whether it's something you're going to hear elsewhere, think about how does your business take that and deliver it in the way that it delivers it. Don't just copy paste something and deliver it out there, because there's so much noise going on around here and it's really hard to stay on top of that. And as a result of that, we might fall in the trap of going, I don't have time to think about it, I'm just going to shove it out there and away it goes. But what you're doing is you're really damaging your brand. You're really damaging the business and what you do. You're really showing your people in your business that you're not caring about who you are, you're just trying to push shit out and make money and actually don't have a purpose around why you're doing that. So I'm going to finish with a couple of little things. I want to talk about what was just summarized there. So we talked about authenticity and we talked about trust. I find authenticity fast forwards the trust process. There's a lot of noise out there about we're the trusted advisor. I'd love to be able to spend another half an hour debunking why you're actually not a trusted advisor, and the statistics actually tell you that you're not, and then what can we do about that? But it fast forwards that process when we're being who we are. A really good example, like I've already had like half a dozen people that I kind of know through social media tap me on the shoulder and be like, hey mate, we're going to have a whiskey later? They know I love whiskey. My clients are sending me photos, thankfully not at 2 a.m. in the morning when they're drunk at the pub, but the next day saying, hey, I was at the pub and like I tried this whiskey, what do you reckon? It was really cool. And all of a sudden we have bonding connections, and all of a sudden they start to trust me, and they know that I'm going to tell them honestly what I think about something, and they're actually going to listen to it instead of just going, oh, that's fine, you're just paid to say that. So it fast forwards that trust process. So we're not all that different after all. Now this is kind of a bit weird. Hold on, you've just been talking about authenticity, and now you're saying that we're not all that different after all. What I'm touching on there is the technology that we use. We all use the same technology or variants of. We all kind of, learn from everybody and we try to do better. But realistically, we're kind of in the same space there. The niching stuff, like I said, we can do that. Like you can Google how to figure out how to do certain things and learn how to do it. Now obviously there's certain things that require a fair bit more knowledge than a cheeky Google. But realistically, what you do, a large component of that can be done by anyone in this room. It's not all that different. What is different is how you do it and why you do it. That's where the differentiation comes through. So we're not all that different after all. And the last one I want to touch on is authenticity allows for better representation. It allows for a better representation of your business. It allows for better representation for your clients. It allows for better representation for your family. And it allows for a better representation of who you are. Because realistically, we just want to be loved, right? It's all about human interaction. We are in professional services. It's not a product that we're selling. It's a service that we're selling. And it's something that people want to connect to and believe in as a result of who we are. And realistically, it's just a hell of a lot more fun when we get to be who we are. When I get to be the guy that has a beard and tattoos and that's okay now. Whereas if I did that at my KPMG days, that would not have been okay. I would have had to fit in that mold. So I want to thank you for your time today. I'm going to be floating around for the next couple of days. So if anything that I've talked about kind of hits a nerve, or you disagree, you agree, you want to unpack that more, you want to know what that looks like, you want to hear more about the Illuminate journey, feel free to accost me. Just tackle me down. I'm more than happy to talk. I've got a few other sessions that I'm going to be doing today. At 3 o'clock in the ACCA Theatre, I'm going to be jumping on a panel talking about accounting practices embracing technology. At 4 p.m. in the keynote A, I'm going to be joining Alex Falcon and Alistair Barlow, and we're going to be talking about digital from the start. Hot tip, we're going to give you free booze if you rock up to that one. There will be beer and wine served at no cost. I will be drinking whiskey on stage. It'll be awesome. And then at 5 o'clock, I'll be in the keynote B room as we deliver the British Accounting Marketing Awards, otherwise known as the BAMAs. I really encourage you to come have a look there, because what we're going to explore is businesses that have identified their brand and they communicate that well. That's going to be something to kind of learn and adjust from there as well. So that's pretty much all from me. I'm going to leave you with one final phrase, and then I think we're going to have a bit of a Q&A. And that's just this: be yourself, because everyone else is taken. Thanks, guys.
Cool. Andrew, thank you for that. Very good. It was interesting to note as well, the first time, one of the biggest responses you got was when you said free booze. So it's good to know who we're talking to.
Yep.
One of the things that I often talk about, and we certainly believe with my firm's app, is about making conscious decisions. And one of my takeaways from what you were sharing there is it's really important to make those conscious decisions. Who is it I am? Who do I want to be? We spend a lot of time doing what we do. We may as well be happy doing it. And when you've made those sorts of decisions, it's then you can, whether it's technology or whatever, there's no silver bullets. You just choose the right stuff to help you make that thing better, make the business processes better. But it's very, very easy to drift, to just ambivalently go through stuff. And so being very clear, very conscious about who I am, what do I want to do, what type of business do I want, what type of experience do I want to create. And they're often small decisions. It's not like a game-changing epiphany I've had one night and then everything's different. It's the daily, weekly stuff that adds up. So if you've got any thoughts on that, that would be cool. But also, folks, any questions about Andrew's business or the point of authenticity? Anyone disagree? Because that's always fun.
Cool. I might answer that quickly and then we'll come to you. So the whole idea of like building and following the conscious decisions is you need to know who you are to start to then follow that on. So we went through an experience where we had a whole team. We went away on a retreat. We had a branding specialist come and unpack a bunch of stuff. They had calls with our clients, calls with our team, and they came back and they told me who they think we are. I didn't want to tell them who we were, because what that is I'm just trying to create something that I want it to look like, because that's cool, but really they came back and they said this is who we are. And then as a result of that, we got some core values that come out of that. Those things are like the truth and they cannot be fought against. And we've got something that we refer to as the immutable laws. This comes from a guy called Mike Michalowicz, who wrote a book called The Pumpkin Plan. He's also written one called Profit First. And the immutable laws are like your values often might change. Right? When all of a sudden, like right now we're talking a lot about soft skills, but in 5 or 10 years time, it might be different. And then as a business, we're going to morph and change. But what are the things that never change? And for us, we've got 4 things, and we apply them over our clients, and we apply them over our people. Our number 1 rule is we have a no dickheads policy. And the no dickheads policy for us is we define what a dickhead really looks like. And a dickhead for us is people who are not willing to like adopt the way we go about things. We're happy to be challenged in that. But if they're all about, you must do it my way, and this is how it's going to look, and I'm never going to get you the documents on time when you need it, I'm never going to tell you, then mate, you're probably a dickhead and we don't want to work with you. Number 2, we got to have a heart. So we want to work with people that care. We're not about people who just give all their money away, but if you're doing things unethically, if all you're trying to do is just rape and pillage to better yourself, we don't want to have anything to do with you. And one of the key things for us is if they're not responsible for looking after their people, their employees, that for me is saying, I don't know if you're actually going to fit with us. The third one is we want to have a laugh. We want to laugh a lot. We have a lot of fun because we know at one point in time we're going to stuff something up, and we want to have our clients have a bit of grace so they can actually, allow us to fix that. And the last one, which is the most important one for me, it's really 2, but I call it 1, is we want to speak truth and life. I cannot help my clients if they don't tell me where they're really at. I cannot help my people if I don't know where they're at. But at the same time, I want you to speak life into that. If you're down, that's okay to be down, but let's talk about where we're heading. If you're way up, don't get carried away. Let's be realistic about what that looks like. So that's how we do that. And we take that, and every single one of my clients sees a little mini whiteboard I've got in my office that has those 4 rules on it. And if they read the first one and they don't laugh, they're probably a dickhead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I liked your presentation, but for me, it's all about how do I get my staff to buy into the authenticity approach? Because I've got confidence, I come from a sales, so I'm happy, talking to clients, understanding who they are, but how do I get that across to staff who are more interested in being data monkeys and just dealing with the figures and don't have the confidence to actually, work with the clients directly? Because if you're going to scale this business, obviously all the staff have to be engaging with all the clients.
Yeah. Look, that is a difficult one, especially when you kind of have a team already, and then you're like, hey, we're going to go and do this stuff. So the first thing I'd say is you need to involve your team in understanding who you are as a business. If you just come in and say, by the way, this is who we are, these are our values, this is our little tagline, and this is what we are, all your people will be like, oh, gee, I don't know if I agree with that. Like, how does that actually mean to me? If we involve our people in those conversations, they're going to be far more invested into doing that. And then as a result, you're probably going to see them start to act that out a little bit. The second thing is we need to understand that everyone is different. We need to appreciate, like in an authentic space, we're going to have detail-orientated people and we're going to have high airy-fairy people. I'm a high airy-fairy person. I have some very detail-orientated people in my business, and I struggle with that at times because I'm like, stop it. No, that doesn't matter. It's not important. This is what's important. But I know that without them, we actually wouldn't be making sure that we're dotting the I's and crossing the T's. So it's really about understanding your people well and how you can communicate with them. We do Myers-Briggs. You might have heard Myers-Briggs or DISC. There's a whole bunch of personality profiling. So in there, what I can understand is by looking at like this Myers-Briggs profile and looking at my profile, it can tell me how to best communicate with them as well. How can I get the best out of them? How do I know when they're stressed? What can I do to help to reduce that stress? What do they actually need to feel fulfilled? And I think that's really important. So if you can do some of that team bonding. So for us as a team, we do an annual retreat where we go away for 3 nights and we just talk stuff, get drunk, do all kinds of crazy things. We then head to Xerocon every year as a team. We fly up, we do it. It's a really strong bonding experience for everybody. And then we do team days, full days every quarter, where we shut the office down and we just get involved in that. And then every now and then it's all about getting them interacted as best as we possibly can. And it's challenging because all of a sudden you've got people who disagree with what it is you're trying to say, and you're like, that's fine, but this is what you have to do. But you need to find better ways to involve them in that decision-making process, and then they will be more bought into it.
Right. Any other questions for Andrew? Thanks for that one. That was good. Any other thoughts, questions? Anyone got similar experiences that they can say, yeah, actually, I did this, I agree?
So one of the things I did this presentation to a large, very large accounting business in Australia. The first time I ever did it. And I was sitting in a room, I did it twice. I did it first to all the partners and second to all the senior managers and the senior accountants. And one of the things I talked about is, why won't it work? Why can't you live this authentic thing? What does that look like? And I realised it was probably a mistake because I shouldn't have done this in this large organisation. But sometimes in the space where you're at, you're restricted by being able to do that. Sometimes the leaders that might be in your business don't appreciate that and they don't give you the space to be able to do that. Now, I'm not saying you need to quit your job and start your own thing up tomorrow, but what I'm saying there is you need to understand and recognise that sometimes it is hard to live an authentic space, especially if you haven't been able to do that. But what you need to be able to do is you need to start finding what are those baby steps that I can do to start live that out. And if all of a sudden it does get to a point where that organisation is really not respecting who I am and not allowing me to do what it is that I do, then you need to take stake of that and go, well, do I need to make a decision? And that was my choice to leave where I was at and start up Illuminate at that point in time. And for me, that was the best/worst decision I ever made.